Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. Today I thought it might be interesting to revisit Meghan's last substantive interview before the Netflix series and Prince Harry's memoir were released, her October 2022 Variety magazine profile. Can you even believe it's been so long? Do you think it's possible that Saint Meghan has heard our prayers and finally shut the fuck up? At the time, everyone was calling this profile a rebrand from her disastrous profile in The Cut, where she threatened the royal family no fewer than 3 times, explicitly stating she hadn't signed any kind of NDA, had her security guard throw a backpack of crackers to a homeless person, and literally made the journalist sing and dance for her 1-year-old before kicking her out with a fruit basket and getting her fired when she didn't like the article. Back then, I did not have time to read this, so today I thought, hindsight is 2020. Now that we've seen the havoc H&M have wreaked with Netflix and Spare, let's listen to this together. Disclaimer: this is not a summary video. This is part 1 of a 2-part granular analysis. If you're looking for a summary video, I recommend Martin Decoder and Dr. Todd Grande. They're both very good in different ways. I especially love it when you all leave running reactive commentary in the comment section below. It always makes me laugh, so feel free to do so.
Meghan Markle lets her guard down. On grieving Queen Elizabeth, producing with Harry and returning to Hollywood, by Matt Donnelly. The Duchess of Sussex is in mourning. But we'll get back to that.
I can't be the only one rolling my eyes at just the title and the opening gambit. Meghan Markle lets her guard down. We'll never see the day. Meghan Markle is in mourning for somebody she didn't know. Producing with Harry? Producing what? Returning to Hollywood? She's been there for 2 years. Ugh. We just know immediately that this is going to be another fluffy piece. I checked to see if Matt Donnelly had been fired like Allison P. Davis was, and he hasn't been. He is still writing for Variety with articles published as recently as 3 days ago. So congratulations, Matt. You've successfully towed the line between sycophancy and reporting. Also, let's talk about the mourning period. The national period of mourning for the Queen was 10 days. The royal family's official period of mourning, 16 days. I don't think that's enough, do you? When the Queen's father died, court mourning was 16 weeks. When his father died, not even 100 years ago, full court mourning was 6 months plus 3 months of half mourning. I know times have changed, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments.
First, let's go to the day we met, this past summer, at the venerated San Isidro Ranch in Montecito, California. The ranch is a low-key old luxury resort, with simple bungalows tucked into a mountainside overlooking the Pacific coast. It's the kind of unpretentious but protected place wealthy locals and LA transplants come to be treated like royalty. On one witheringly hot day in late August, however, they got to mingle with the real thing.
It's the real thing. Coke is, that's the way it should be. Coca-Cola, what the world wants to see. Oh yeah, real thing.
If by the real thing you mean poison, sure.
That morning, the Duchess of Sussex, known more commonly by her maiden name, Meghan Markle, sped past a group of 60-something women who'd made the trek to Montecito to celebrate a milestone birthday. Teetering on the dusty cobblestone walkway in their wedges and kitten heels, the group stopped dead as Meghan waved and smiled from a golf cart delivering her to her Variety cover shoot. "Can you imagine?" said one of the women wistfully after the Duchess had passed, perhaps talking about the life she has led thus far. An American woman meeting and marrying a handsome young prince beloved by all the world. Or maybe, as we were there to discuss, the life she's leading now.
Or maybe, can you imagine being so delusional as to think your neighbors and economic equals are fans of yours that you should smile and wave to? They didn't come out to see you, Megs.
It actually is hard to imagine. For most of her public life as the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan has been described as many things: disingenuous, calculating, determined, relatable, even Diana-like.
And this is where Matt is scaring me. I'm thinking that Meghan wrote this article. He didn't. Meghan has certainly never been described as Diana-like by anyone but herself. And that's a typical Meghan word salad strategy there, trying to change the meaning of direct criticisms like disingenuous and calculating to admirable qualities like determined and relatable. And while she may have been described as determined to get to the top by any means necessary, again, I've never heard anybody call her relatable, nor is she in any obvious sense. LA private school girl turned sorority girl turned actress turned paid influencer turned literal princess. She's led a life of astounding privilege, and refusing to acknowledge that is extremely awkward.
But spend a day with her, and you'll witness a side that the public hasn't seen: the nerdy American mom. Meghan talks about how she loves to watch Jeopardy! And do Wordle in bed with a glass of wine. She absent-mindedly raps her son's favorite song, a track about the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Ask the Storybots, and talks enthusiastically about Beyoncé. Specifically, how Cozy is her favorite song from the new album.
This is a subtle and amusing repositioning. At the beginning of Archetypes, she'd have had us believe she was Christopher Hitchens in a skirt, and now she's reduced to Wordle user. I wonder if she knows she was shooting for highbrow brilliant, but on some level has accepted that she's premium mediocre at best. Also, stop sweating Beyoncé. If she wanted to be friends, she would have called.
And what about all the photos you've seen of her with that guarded smile?
I've never seen a photo of her with a guarded smile, and she's famous for having a smile plastered on her face all the time. I've seen her feigning laughter, creating a sort of smile. I've seen her do a seducing the cameras kind of smile. I've seen a begrudgingly polite smile. I've seen a we just fucked / heard we won a lawsuit smile. I've seen a Mr. Grinch grin. The cover shot for this very magazine is a sort of missionary smiling gaze. I've seen a great, they're doing as they were directed smile of relief. I've seen her playing coy. I've seen a dead-eyed, overfilled and Botoxed, fuck all y'all, I'm just here for the cameras smile of a robot. I've even seen the smile that will go down in history, the one that will go into the textbooks as the archetype, if you will, of duper's delight, the one she wore the entire night. She threatened her husband with suicide if he didn't agree to leave his family. Even when Meghan is at her most genuinely cracked, she's selling, not hiding. I've literally never seen her with a guarded smile.
At the shoot, she couldn't have been more at ease as she shook the hand of every crew member, stylist, and photographer's assistant.
I hate that this is being portrayed as humble and friendly rather than obsequious, because most crew members would rather not be individually and personally greeted by the talent and finish this shoot on time than chat with her. Her dad was a DP. She knows this.
She shrugged off the pop singers of contemporary radio in favor of her own 1970s road trip playlist. She addressed questions about the past few years head-on. She burst out laughing at the drop of a hat, almost like a princess in a Hollywood movie.
That doesn't flow, does it? And in this day and age, is it really a compliment for a woman to be utterly delighted by absolutely nothing? It's almost as if she demanded the author compare her to a Hollywood princess somewhere in the article, and he was really having trouble figuring out where to cram that in.
When asked what she wanted most out of life, she said, "Joy. That's really it. It's everything that we can work toward for ourselves, our friends, our kids, those around us. That would feel so good. And we do feel joyful."
Interesting tense shift. That would feel so good, and we are joyful. Sounds like she's pretending to be happy.
Meghan was set to be honored in the 2022 class of Variety's Power of Women, celebrating notable achievements in entertainment and media by women throughout the year. She was to be feted for both philanthropic and creative work, including a podcast called Archetypes, of which she is the host, routed through Archewell, the company she shares with her husband, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Nearly 3 weeks before press time, though, 8 days after she stopped the birthday revelers in their tracks at the San Isidro Ranch, the prince's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, died at her Scottish estate Balmoral.
Well, there goes that blasted old lady again, demanding unreasonable sacrifices even in death.
The world watched and mourned as the longest reigning monarch in British history was laid to rest and celebrated for what Meghan says was the shining example of female leadership.
Pop quiz. Was the Queen a shining example of female leadership or simply a shining example of leadership? Your response will determine where on the feminist spectrum you lie.
Following the official period of mourning,
A whole 16 days.
Meghan agrees to sit again for a lengthy discussion about her road to the present. She worries that any comments about the Queen or her in-laws will be a distraction from continued mourning, but presses on to celebrate the icon. She grows animated talking about the warmth and support she received from the thousands of citizens she interacted with during her time in the UK, not to mention the 2 significant content deals she and Prince Harry struck with streaming giants Netflix and Spotify. The 2 young children, Archie Harrison, 3, and Lilibet Diana, 1, at the center of the Sussex household, the singular mission behind Archewell, and how tenaciously she has fought to build the life and company of her dreams.
Okay, finally we get to the Q&A.
The world has been mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth. How has this time been? There's been such an outpouring of love and support. I'm really grateful that I was able to be with my husband to support him, especially during that time.
Weird. This kind of implies that without her, he wouldn't have a support system, which scarily might be true at this point. Or even worse, that he's lucky she didn't have something better to do.
What's so beautiful is to look at the legacy that his grandmother was able to leave on so many fronts. Certainly, in terms of female leadership, she is the most shining example of what that looks like.
Yeah, again, female leadership does not and need not look different than male leadership.
I feel deep gratitude to have been able to spend time with her and get to know her. It's been a complicated time, but my husband, ever the optimist, said, now she's reunited with her husband.
Interesting. I wonder if Harry believes that as Meghan's husband, he's her sole succor and comfort, because Harry, you're not. She just likes your money and your status. And it would be really unhealthy if you were anyhow. Her making you think you are is a manipulation to make you try harder, give more, sacrifice more, give in more, give up more, deny yourself more than you otherwise would for her benefit.
Has anything come up for you in your relationship with the Queen since her passing? I've reflected on that first official engagement that I had with her, how special that felt. I feel fortunate. And I continue to be proud to have had a nice warmth with the matriarch of the family.
That last part is very odd, how even when talking about the Queen, she had to center it on herself, that she had achieved something by the Queen being nice to her. She should have left out that last sentence entirely.
How have you processed this loss as a family? In big moments in life, you get a lot of perspective. It makes you wonder what you want to focus your energy on. Right now, we feel energized and excited about all of the things we've been building toward. We're also focused on our foundation. So much of the work we do includes the philanthropic space.
So much of the work you do? What work? If philanthropy is your calling, you are failing.
You've done 2 major interviews since returning to America, one with Oprah Winfrey and the other with New York Magazine, which some found to be snarky. What has it been like to open up about your life now? The New York story was intended to support Archetypes and focus on our projects. I've had some time to reflect on it. Part of me is just really trusting, really open. That's how I move in the world. I have to remember that I don't ever want to become so jaded that that piece of me goes away.
Meghan, you didn't come off badly in that interview because the interviewer was snarky. You came off badly in that interview because of the crazy shit you did and said. You were obnoxious. Obnoxious and naive are not the same thing, and I don't believe you're naive anyway.
So, despite any of those things, onward. I can survive it.
Friends, this might be the only compliment I ever pay Meghan, no matter what the circumstances. Whether she should be able to or not, she can always walk it off.
Part of what I'm doing with archetypes is looking at the nuances around the women who come on the show.
What? Women are not objects. Women are not artworks. We're not arguments. The nuances of a woman?
I'm not a journalist,
You jest.
but I want a candid, real conversation with them.
Did you? Because you didn't even interview 2/3 of them. You only interviewed the guests you deemed famous enough to network with. And the interviews you did do personally were clearly, painfully scripted. It was very obvious when the guest went off script because you could not hide how thrown you were. And after this tonal shift, the guest either magically disappeared or the remainder of their interview was over edited into actual nonsense. And then followed up by you with a summary, not only both inaccurate and irrelevant, but clearly crafted after the fact to make it seem as if they agreed with you wholly when they clearly did not.
I'm talking to some really textured, colorful, layered, dynamic women with strong histories, and that comes with a lot of pieces you can choose to include or not.
I swear, it sounds like she's talking about a Jackson Pollock auction for ArtNet magazine.
I choose to include something that I feel is fair to them, and also uplifting, and something we can all learn from.
You know, it would be really fair, the fairest, if you didn't manipulate their words to your own ends.
What were the days like after the Oprah interview aired on TV before an audience of 18 million people? Even before the interview, I hadn't been out because I was so pregnant. The one thing I really remember was Gloria Steinem's birthday, a few days after it aired. I really wanted to celebrate her at what I thought was just going to be a small and intimate birthday lunch. I envisioned it being us eating sandwiches in this cottage she was staying at.
LOL. Did you really think you were one of Gloria Steinem's 6 closest friends?
Instead, it was an extravaganza, by the way, as she deserves.
I never really think of extravagant birthday parties as something a person deserves, just whatever they want. I wonder if she resents the fact that she can't really drum up a guest list for her own party because she hasn't thrown any.
But I hadn't really seen people in a long time, and the interview had come out maybe a week before. Walking into a room alone is never easy for me, and I remember feeling a bit uncomfortable. But before I could let my uncertainty linger, Pamela Adlon came up to me and greeted me with such warmth and kindness. She toured me around the room, and at every turn, more generosity and love was felt. Maybe it's just a testament to the kind of company Glow keeps.
She must know calling Gloria Steinem Glow makes her seem like a desperate name dropper, right?
But I also think these women were extraordinary to ensure I felt so welcomed.
Good manners are not extraordinary. Good manners are to be expected, especially at a birthday party. You may not be able to find any, but that doesn't mean they're in short supply.
It's like they knew exactly what I needed to feel in that moment. It meant, and still means, so very much to me.
This is so textbook narcissist. What they value most in other people is those other people making them feel the best they can feel with as little force as possible, because constantly having to force us imbeciles to be and do and say exactly as they wish is really an unfair burden on their energy. We should be unquestioningly and totally submissive to them at all times. Grateful, in fact, to have them simply walking among us.
The power of sisterhood and female support can never be underestimated.
This last little bit is actually extremely patronizing to women and indicative of some internalized misogyny because good manners are universal. Both genders have them and display them, or any gender, however people identify. I don't mean to exclude anyone, I'm just middle aged. The fact that Meghan attributes differing value to their performance by either women or men is actually unfair to everyone.
What can we expect from Liz Garbus' docuseries on you and your husband? It's nice to be able to trust someone with our story. A seasoned director whose work I've long admired, even if it means it may not be the way we would have told it. But that's not why we're telling it. We're trusting our story to someone else, and that means it will go through their lens. It's interesting.
Okay, but it wasn't a docu-series of any kind. It was mommy and daddy sitting down and telling a 6-hour fairy tale. There was not much truth in there and a whole lot of fantasy. As far as creative control goes, Liz Garbus was obviously limited to style rather than substance. It was a literal love letter to themselves and an attempted reckoning with their detractors. I cannot imagine, I cannot fathom how any director could have better catered to their wishes and whims. If anything, H&M set up Liz Garbus and exploited her name and her life's work for legitimacy. That seems to be what Meghan is doing with this answer. She's priming us to believe the story they will tell is credible, and it turned out it wasn't at all, was it?
My husband has never worked in this industry before. For me, having worked on Suits, it's so amazing to be around so much creative energy, and to see how people work together and share their own points of view. That's been really fun.
It's really odd that she makes that distinction immediately between her experience and her husband's experience. Being an actor at Meghan's level does not prepare you to be a director, producer, writer, etc. It would make a lot more sense if she said that both of them were really enjoying the challenge of working in a new industry together, and perhaps even compared it to working in their old roles as a royal power couple together. It does seem like she's always trying to position herself as apart from and superior to Harry, when obviously she'd be nothing without him.
You're in the midst of a successful first season of Archetypes. The show breaks down harmful labels put on women. What are the biggest misconceptions about you? I think that what happens, looking in from the outside, when there is this much noise, is that you become dehumanized.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me read you the 5 steps of dehumanization from Psychology Today. Number 1, hinting at the subpar intelligence or morality of a group. So, not a couple, not an individual, a group. One way is to make the group seem less evolved, for example. Another is to label their lifestyle deplorable or their creative output degenerate. Number 2, the use of infestation analogies. In other words, making the majority group feel that a minority group is a threat to their health or safety in some way. We often hear these infestation analogies when it comes to immigration. We also hear them when it comes to the reproductive rates of certain ethnicities or religious groups or economic classes native to different countries. Number 3, references and comparisons to animals, rats, cockroaches, any other sort of vermin. Consistently equating these people with other things that are okay to kill. Number 4, threats of violence. This is really essential because it is, quote, where dehumanization turns from a prejudicial issue to a precursor for violence and danger, end quote, en masse. Prince Harry mentioned this himself in his book. He was able to dehumanize a group he perceived as different from him and therefore maim and kill them with little regard for morality or consequences. Finally, number 5, the removal of the group from society, deportation, concentration and death camps, ghettos, apartheid, other more subtle forms of segregation. I'm sure you've come across many examples, whatever your generation or nationality. How can Meghan honestly say that the dehumanization process has been applied to her? It's ludicrous. It's insulting to those who have been dehumanized, violated, and murdered. She is a princess who lives in a mansion with a security team and gives interviews and wears outfits that sometimes people mock. That is not dehumanization. And even if a small number of online weirdos say dehumanizing things to and about her, that still does not constitute dehumanization because it's not happening on the mass scale. She is not a group. She is a single person, and she's suffered no evidenced consequences of this supposed personal dehumanization. For all the people that have hinted at her subpar intelligence or morality, she's never lost a day of work. Anyone who called her a plague or other type of infestation hasn't stopped her traveling or buying into whatever neighborhood she liked. Comparing her to an animal, that monkey guy on Twitter got fired and canceled, right? Threats of violence. No one has ever attempted violence towards her. Her removal from society, she's still going to Ellen and Gloria Steinem's birthday parties. It's audacious for her to use this word.
But if you remember that someone is a human being, then you don't treat them, talk about them, look at them the same way.
This is another little clue to her narcissism. For most of us, the default is looking at everybody as human. We have to be really brainwashed into dehumanizing others. For a narcissist, the default is everyone is subhuman, and any tiny kindness or respect we're paid is solely proof of the narcissist's largesse. In the best case scenario, but most of the time, it's only out of necessity to get something they want. Not anything we're due, simply for being human.
My hope for archetypes is that people come out thinking, oh, she's a real person.
The rest of us don't have to remember that other people are human. Only narcissists do.
She laughs and asks questions and approaches things with curiosity.
Another betrayal of her narcissistic sense of superiority. She describes quote unquote real people as if we are all toddlers.
Who has been the most challenging interview so far? I spoke to Paris Hilton last week. I told her at the beginning that I was the most nervous about her interview. I was embarrassed to admit it, but I've had a judgment about her that's based on everything I've seen, and I don't like to come from a place of judgment.
Yes, you do. You seem to judge rather quickly, harshly, and verbosely, as do I. It's not the best flaw, it's not the worst either.
But I also didn't grow up pretty.
The fuck does that have to do with it?
You didn't grow up pretty?
God bless these journalists. Imagine it being your job to follow up on these arrogant, transparent ploy non sequiturs that you know are going to be illogical, irrelevant, long winded, and take the whole interview to a weird place, and people will hate.
I grew up as the smart one. So much of what I ended up thinking about, when I thought about Paris, was envy and judgment. Two of the most dangerous things.
Those two things are unrelated, and you're really insulting smart people right now. Smart girls and young women definitely did not, mostly or necessarily, envy or judge Paris Hilton. What in the world?
But then you hear about her trauma and her life, and her buying into this persona. Ultimately, I told her, I'm really sorry that I judged you. I wanted her to be safe and comfortable.
An easier way of doing that would have just been never telling her that you envied and judged her. The truth is that Meghan is a narcissist who tried to turn the tables. She was ashamed of wanting Paris's validation and approval so badly. So she tried to create a scenario where Paris would be the one seeking her validation and approval.
I told her I wasn't looking for a gotcha moment. I want a got you moment where we get you.
Hi, Paris. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I just want a kill shot. I mean, you'll totally kill it. You'll kill it out there, right?
But that episode is not framed as a defense of Paris. It's the humanization of her.
You psycho. She's always been human.
And that's true for everybody. I don't care what situation you're in. If a 16-year-old boy or girl, or a woman in the workplace, feels objectified or dehumanized because their character is misrepresented, I hope everyone listening with an open mind could come away thinking, could I just actually consider for a second that there's a person there?
How magnanimous of you. Serious question. Who did Meghan think her target audience was? Fascists? Parents who pray the gay away? Alpha Chad, dude bro boss men? Russian bots? Surprise, Megsy. It was bitches like me. Okay, that's it for today. I will post part 2 imminently. Toodles. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.